Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Fantasy Alarm DFS Pro Live MLB live stream. John and Pemba here alongside James Grande as always. James, huge 15 game slate today to go over. You had the privilege of doing the Fantasy Alarm Playbook today. We're breaking down all 15 games, best players, best pitchers. So you maybe more than anybody know this slate better than anybody else today, huh?
Yeah, I mean, massive slate. Every team is playing. I'm more of like a middle of the road, like 6 to 10 game kind of slate guy, but it was fun breaking down the slate today. Other than the weather, again, classic summer weather disruptions, so to
Yeah.
speak. But yeah, it's we got a big one on hand, so we should jump right into it.
Yeah, for sure. And like we said, we mentioned some weather games here. Philadelphia and Washington. Again, rain's been in the area. Anytime there's rain potentially in Washington, you have to worry about the Nationals ownership there postponing the game. So you're really going to need to pay attention to that one as we hit roster lock in about 40 or so minutes. The other game here, Atlanta and Pittsburgh. Another game you have to kind of worry about. And then San Diego and Colorado, which is 10 and a half their run total today. Usually games in cores are the highest owned slate worth of players. There's another potential storms in that system could cause a delay. Again, something you can kind of monitor that you need to worry about. But yeah, like you said, a big 15 game slate, a lot of players to talk about. So let's jump right into pitching. And where are you going today?
So I think right at the top, we have to kind of break down the top tier because there's a bunch of names, and there's four that obviously stick out. So we have Tanaka, we have Corbin, we have Snell, and we have Jose Barrios all right at the top. I think Snell is going to be the most popular pitcher tonight, although it already has been said he's going to pitch 6 to 7 innings. We saw what he did in his last two starts, and that was just flat out dominate. And one of those starts was against the Yankees, who rank in the top three against left-handed pitching in every statistical category. So
Right.
that obviously impressed everyone, and now he gets the Royals. So I think Snell is the guy above everyone tonight. If he can get this, the 7 innings that we're hoping for, I mean, it could be a big number. I think Corbin, if you have the money, is a really, really nice play as well. The Angels ranked 29th in baseball since the All-Star break in average against left-handed pitching. And Corbin's been on a nice little roll, too. 3 straight quality starts, including 7, 9, and 8 strikeouts in those three. So I think he's in a really nice spot. He's really expensive on DraftKings, so, like, you don't have to do it. But I think it's a really nice play off of Snell because Snell's going to be much higher owned than him.
Yeah, and the one thing actually to worry about, not maybe necessarily worry about Snell, but they did say today that they're going to limit hit to 6 or 7 innings. So you're not going to get that complete game out of Snell today. You're not going to get 8 or 9 innings. You'll probably get 6 innings and hope that he can shut them out and get you a handful of strikeouts there. For me, that does kind of cap him a little bit. So I think I'd probably go Corbin as my top guy today. Not only that, the Angels are bad against left-handed pitching. No Mike Trout. So yeah, I think for me, Corbin's probably the top guy. You mentioned Barrios. Hard to not like that matchup against the White Sox today. He's faced them 3 times this year. He's 3-0, 23 strikeouts in 22 innings, 2.46 ERA over those things, averaging 29 DraftKings points. Again, James and I play a lot of DraftKings, so I mentioned it there. 29 DraftKings points in those 3 starts against the White Sox today. So I think that for me is how I'm pivoting. I'm probably gonna go away from Snell just because I'm worried about his potential limits.
And I understand that, but if you go over to FanDuel, he's only 9.6K. So I think over there, the 7 innings, that we could potentially get would be more than okay, and more than give us enough because we get the quality start bonus over there. So I think Snell could be a really intriguing play, and I'm not totally gonna shy away from Tanaka either. I know he was better earlier in the month in late July, like right after the All-Star break. But, again, he gets the Marlins in Miami, so he's away from Yankee Stadium. The last time I touted him on this live stream, he got destroyed against the Rangers, and it was when he was pitching well. He was coming into the game pitching really well. But it's going to be really hard for me to just ignore the fact that the Marlins ranked 28th in OPS and WOBA and 27th in WRC plus against right-handed pitching this year. So, I mean, yeah, they have been slightly better, and Tanaka has been, middling kind of late, teetering up and down. But if you want to pivot off Corbin or Snell on DraftKings, I think Tanaka's a fine route to go.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they're facing Miami. He's away from Yankee Stadium, so yeah, it's a matchup that definitely looks appealing, and he's probably going to be kind of more of a GPP play, obviously, than a cash games play. If we're looking to spend down a little bit more, what are your thoughts tonight on Kyle Hendricks against Detroit? Detroit's usually better against lefties and righties. Hendricks is kind of having kind of an up and down year here, but I got to think, Chicago should be able to take care of Detroit and get the win tonight against Jordan Zimmerman. Any interest in him today? Maybe a cash games play?
Yeah, Hendricks is my top middle tier play for all formats. I mean, it's weird because we don't necessarily view him as someone who strikes people out, but since the All-Star break, he has a 10.49 K rate, which is way above any number we've ever seen him at. I mean, just looking at his recent stretch of games, 8-8, 7-5-8 in the strikeout department. So yeah, there have been a couple of those games have been 4 earned runs, but I mean, the strikeouts and the wins, which the Cubs are massive favorites tonight. Detroit is 30th in baseball against righties. So, I mean, I think Kendricks in all formats is a fine play, and I think we can get that strikeout upside plus the win, which is, what obviously gives us a giant boost on either site. So yeah, I think Hendricks is in a smash spot tonight in the mid tier.
Now you have another player kind of listed in your playbook. Expected to make his major league debut, highly touted prospect. Came from the Red Sox deal with Chris Sale. Michael Kopech makes his debut. Kind of what are you expecting from him? Do you trust him? I'm assuming just in GPPs today, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously only GPPs. I mean, he, like you mentioned, he's making his first professional start. So I think GPP only for him, but the upside is there. The Twins offense isn't what it was last year, or Eddie Rosario slowed down. We no longer have Eduardo Escobar to worry about. Brian Dozier's no longer there. So the Twins offense is kind of in flux, and 170 strikeouts and 128 in the third innings at the minor league level is pretty eye-popping. So, even if Kopech gave us 5 innings and gave us 6 or 7 Ks, I mean, he's only $6,000 and 7.6 K. So the price tags aren't too outrageous, especially the 6K on FanDuel, I think is really, really intriguing. So I think if you want to go Kopech, I think he's more than viable in a GPP. Obviously, it's his major league debut, and that's a little risky, but I think it's worth the risk at the end of the night.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd rather play him more on FanDuel, I think, where he doesn't get dinged for the negative points. He doesn't get dinged for the walks or the hits or anything like that. If he gives up runs, that's where they'll get him, but, it's really strikeout beneficial there. And the price tag, too, $6,000 on FanDuel, much more reasonable for a guy like him making his major league debut. $7,600, I think, is a little bit too much for me to risk. Again, GPPs, you got to take chances, but I think I'll probably pass on him. I have a little bit more interest potentially in Kevin Gausman. I know that's kind of a name that a lot of people shudder to, but last 2 starts seemingly riding the ship a little bit here. Miami 6 innings, 2 earned, 2 strikeouts, and got the win. Obviously, you want to see more than 2 Ks against Miami, but didn't get shelled. And then the start before that against Milwaukee, 8 innings, 1 run, 8 strikeouts, maybe a little bit more than what we're looking for. Gets Pittsburgh tonight, on the road in a ballpark that's kind of a pitcher park there in Pittsburgh. So I think Gausman for 7,100 on DraftKings is a little bit more appealing to me.
Yeah, and I'm not totally against it. But you mentioned the 2 strikeouts against the Marlins, and that's where I think kind of Kopech separates himself from Gausman, because obviously Kopech, the strikeouts are coming at AAA, so we're not seeing it at the big league level yet, but I think there's more upside on Kopech than if a Pittsburgh offense who's much better and has been hotter since the All-Star break than the Marlins have. So I'm okay with Gausman in the tournament, but I don't necessarily like him more than Kopech. I think they're both there's a lot of really bad, like middle to low tier pitchers. And I think, they're probably the two better mid-tier options, but I prefer Kopech slightly more to Gausman.
That's fair. If you're looking for value play tonight, where are you going?
I think the obvious value play on this slate is Brett Anderson. I think it's not really even close either. He's only 5.7K on DraftKings, which is free. He's coming off 7 2/3 of shutout baseball against the Mariners. Yes, only 2 strikeouts. But 7 2/3 of shutout baseball netted him 18.3 DraftKings points nonetheless. He's already come off a game against the Rangers this year, 6 innings, just 2 earned, 6 Ks, and he got us a win. So I think my dogs are just going crazy. I apologize. So like the success has been there. Yes, the Rangers offense is in a better place than what it was previously when Anderson faced them. But we get, the park upgrade for Anderson and the park downgrade for the Rangers offense. So I think he's in a really good spot, and, they're huge favorites tonight. So even if he gave us the minimum 5 innings and left with the lead, I fully expect him to pick up the extra points from a win by night's end. So, where he lacks in maybe strikeouts or where he lacks in other departments, I think he makes up in a win. And I think it's just a no-brainer. He's like really the only value tier guy I see pretty viable in more than just a GPP. Like I would consider Anderson in a cash game if you really wanted to fit like Colorado bats. I can understand it. So yeah, I love Anderson tonight.
Yeah, that's fair. It's hard to argue with, obviously the numbers there. One last guy I want to mention, just because, his only other start this year was the 7 innings of no-hit baseball. Daniel Ponce de Leon pitching tonight against the Dodgers. What's your take there? Do you think he's capable of throwing another no-no here?
I'm just my issue, not a no-no. But I guess I'm just interested in seeing how like deep into this game he'll go. We saw him pitch just 3 days ago, and obviously it's different because he was pitching out of the bullpen. But like how willing are the Cardinals to stretch him out? They pulled him. Yeah, they let him throw 116 pitches in his no-hit bid, but they pulled him, and he hasn't thrown more than 3 innings since then. So can we trust that he'll get more than 5 innings or like even qualify for a win, which, because he doesn't strike a lot of people out, I would like to see him qualify for a win, to kind of make up for the lack of strikeouts. He hasn't struck anyone out, in any game. 3 is his high. So, he's okay, but I'm just interested to see how the Cardinals use him. So I'd probably rather use a wait-and-see approach on him because, he could eventually get more starts with him taking Weaver's spot in the rotation. So
totally fair. Let's move on to catcher tonight. A spot that we have to pay attention to because of the weather out in Colorado. But you got to like there. You have Austin Hedges getting the lefty, and you also have Chris Iannetta getting the lefty. Both of them hit, ton of power there. Iannetta's basically still in the league because he hits left-handed pitching so well. This year, obviously, has some of the case, and I feel like that's been a lot of guys this year that have typically hit lefties well for whatever reason. Their numbers are a little bit down, but historically, Iannetta has been one of the top catches against left-handed pitching, and Hedges, for me, those two guys kind of top the catching list if this game ends up playing.
Yeah, Iannetta has a career 800 OPS against left-handed pitching, so he's actually been hitting a little better lately too. Showing a little more power, a couple extra base hits over his last 10 games, so that's obviously a positive, and we get the positive park upgrade in Colorado. So, you can never take that away from anybody. Anybody playing in Colorado in that elevation could play better than what they are, So, and Hedges, we know, Hedges is a home run play. Like, we're going to play Hedges for the home run because, he only has 9 this year. Yes, he missed some time. Yes, but he is just like Iannetta, and he hits lefties, and he's even actually in a better spot in the lineup, hitting 6th. Iannetta has the pitcher hitting behind him, so he potentially doesn't get the pitches that he would normally see. But Iannetta is the cheapest Rocky on DraftKings tonight. So like he works really well in a Rocky stack just because I mean to afford guys like Story, to afford guys like LeMahieu on DraftKings and Arenado, they're all over 5K. So you
Right.
need someone like Ionetta to fill out that full stack.
If we're not paying up, what's kind of some other catches you're staring at?
I mean, my two favorite are actually not starting tonight, which sucks.
Yeah.
And Buster Posey, who we saw last night at 3.1K, but I think his replacement, Nick Hundley, is in a really interesting spot. He's a guy who has hit lefties extremely well this year, and he's hitting fourth at just 3.6K on DraftKings. So I think Hundley has cheap upside. And for $100 cheaper, probably the safer cash game play is Matt Wieters. Over the last 10 games, Wieters 357, 441, 536 slash, 10 for his last 28. So, I mean, I think Wieters is in a really good spot tonight. Vincent Velasquez struggles against lefties and specifically lefty power, which we know Wieters has always had, solid power from the left side. So I think Wieters is probably the safest cash game play from at the catcher position, like outside of Coors, because I don't know if we can really classify Coors as safe tonight because of the rain and the weather potential. And I think Hundley is the GPP flyer because I mean he's mashed lefties all year.
Yeah, and if we're spending down, I think today for me, I'm looking at Rene Rivera. This is a guy that has historically hit left-handed pitching well. I know that Corbin's my favorite pitcher, but $2,700 in DraftKings is as cheap as you can really get. As a starting catcher, he offers some power upside, 700 OPS this year against lefties, but last year he absolutely hammered them. Had a 753 OPS, so this is a guy that has historically hit left-handed pitching really well, really cheap. I don't mind him as sort of a punt play at the position.
Yeah, I think that's a fine call. I don't necessarily see myself punting because it's so bad, but like there are so many bats on this slate, you might need to. I think it's him, and I think it's James McCann if you don't like Kyle Hendricks, just for the power upside, and that's it. Like you don't play Jeff Mathis, I don't think.
No.
I mean he's actually been pretty decent, but like he's hitting 218 with a 580 OPS on the year. So
yeah, I think Wieters is a good call, mid-tier price tag.
Yep.
Very reasonable. So let's move on to first base. Who's your top first baseman tonight?
My top first baseman is Paul Goldschmidt. I mean, if you just look at his numbers lately, his slash for his last 10 games, 475, 543, 875 slug. He has 8 extra base hits over just his last 10 games. He has an 11-game hit streak going, or 12-game hit streak, excuse me. There's really nobody in baseball hotter at this very moment. And I think it's him. Now, the issue with spending up on Goldschmidt, as my dogs start to go crazy once again, is he doesn't allow you to get Coors. And I think Coors is a really good route to go tonight. So I think if you're going to pivot off Goldschmidt, I think the best pivot on the slate is Anthony Rizzo. 4.3K, $1,000 cheaper on DraftKings, $700 cheaper on FanDuel. He's homered off Zimmerman in the past. 376 WOBA against righties on the year. I think Rizzo is a surefire all-format play, pivot off Goldschmidt at the top.
Yeah, I like it. I think another guy we can look at and someone that we talked about last night didn't exactly crush it, but Matt Olson, I think, still in play tonight. I'm not sure if you looked at the splits there, but so Ariel Jurado, is that how we're going to pronounce his name? Lefties are hitting 356 with almost 1,100 OPS off of him this season. 45 at bats. Obviously, he hasn't pitched a ton of innings, only 26 innings there, but pretty evenly split there, and that's just a lot of power coming from Olson. This could be another good spot for him. Well, he went over 5 last night with an RBI, but he's been hitting well in recent stretches, so I think he's a nice little play too.
Yeah, I think he's great, and he works so perfectly in an Oakland stack. He's a little pricey on FanDuel, 3.7K. That's probably a little more than I'd like to spend, but I mean, I'd go there in a stack. I probably wouldn't spend that as like a one-off, but 4.1K on DraftKings is an excellent price tag. 19 of 23 of his home runs have come off right-handers, so Just take that into consideration. Jurado's given up 5 bombs in just his last 2 starts. So I think that total is going to double tonight. So, yeah, I think Olson's a great play in that mid-tier.
Yep, that's kind of I'm looking at it. Any value first baseman catching on? Maybe another Kendrys Morales call as he gets the home run machine, Dylan Bundy.
Yeah, I mean, easy. I mean, we touted him last night, and he responded.
Double dong.
Yeah, he responded. So, I mean, why not go right back to the well? 2.4K. Bundy has allowed lefties to hit 307 with a 400 WOBA, essentially, and Morales is hitting all his home runs from the left side. So, it's just such an easy plug and play on FanDuel at 2.4K in cash games.
It's going to be hard. On DraftKings is pretty good too for.
Yeah, no, of course, absolutely. But like 2.4K on FanDuel is like that's
free.
Stupid.
I like to say a lot of things are free, but that's pretty free.
That's free for a guy who's double donged a day ago. And he's now getting a guy who I think his only outs come off fly balls or strikeouts. I don't think there's any ground balls mixed in.
He was leading the league in home runs allowed the last I looked, so that could have changed over the last couple of days, but Bundy was the leader in home runs allowed for a while. So let's move on to second base tonight. Who's your top second baseman?
So it fluctuates from site, I think. On FanDuel, I think it's no question DJ LeMahieu. He's only 3.5K. He's back to where he was like last year and the years prior. He has a 7-game hitting streak. He's homered in 2 straight, and 3 times in his last 9. He's already 1 home run off his career high. He already has 10, 11 is his career high, and he's crushing lefties. Just seemingly like every single Rocky. We just rattle off every Rocky. They're all hitting lefties. He's hitting 330 with a WOBA up near 400. 5.1K on DraftKings is a little scary, which is why I think Travis Shaw, your boy, is the top play over there. I mean, the Brewers let us down. There's no doubt about it. Yesterday they let us down, but Shaw didn't. He homered, and he has 25 home runs on the year, and 24 have come off righties. Sal Romano is the Reds have an assembly line of pitchers that all can't pitch versus left-handed bats. So, just load up on the lefties in Milwaukee. And I think they might be lower owned, knowing that they let a lot of people down. Recency bias is a hell of a drug in the fantasy world, So I think Shaw and the rest of the Brewers are going to go overlooked tonight.
Yeah, you mentioned Sal Romano. Lefties are hitting 312 with a 918 OPS off of him this season. He's allowed 21 home runs, 10 of them to lefties this year. 21 home runs and 23 starts, not a good number. And I mean, you said they kind of let him down, but I mean, we touted Shaw and Yelich yesterday, both of them homered, so didn't let anybody down who watched this live stream. That's for sure, because we had the homers there. If we're going down sort of to the middle tier or a little bit cheaper, I guess. I actually like Ian Kinsler tonight against the Bieber. I'm not a believer tonight, so I think the Red Sox kind of bounced back after last night's sort of tough loss. They're cruising for a little bit, ended up falling to Kluber. I think they put up some runs off Bieber, facing a lesser pitcher here. So for me, I really like Kinsler tonight.
Yeah, and Kinsler's fine. And the Red Sox are, I mean, I don't know if you can ever consider them sneaky, but on a 15-game slate, we're going to get guys that are owned lower than they should be. And Kinsler, 2.6K on FanDuel is such good value. I mean, I actually prefer the lefties from Boston. The left, like if we were going back to first, I think Mitch Moreland is in a good spot. But 2.6K is really hard to ignore, and he's not expensive on DraftKings either. So, I really like Ian Kinsler in that mid-tier as well.
Nice. Any value plays catch your eye?
Yeah, so I think over on FanDuel, Ben Zobrist, obviously multi-position eligible. He's more mid-tier on DraftKings, but he's more value tier on FanDuel, hitting right in the middle of the order. And then I think Adam Frazier, you mentioned Kevin Gausman, but Frazier is a guy we mentioned. We've kind of mentioned a bunch. We've kind of mentioned a bunch lately. 323 over his last 10 games. In the month of August, he's hitting 363 with an OPS over 1,000. So hitting second tonight, 2.7K on FanDuel. great value over there. I think he's not. I mean, our projections have him at less than 5% owned. So not that ownership matters so much, but if we get a value dong right there, we're a leg up on the field. So I think Frazier and Zobrist are my two value guys over at second base.
That's fine. Over on DraftKings, Forsythe is $3,000 again. Does facing a guy as hard as throwing as Kopech scare you off him a little bit?
I think I just tend to overlook him more when he's not facing a lefty because he's been so good against lefties in the last couple of years. I don't hate him. $3K for a guy who's hitting over 300 in his last 10 games is great value. Like I said, I think it's just me. It's just an oversight because I like Kopech and he's not facing a lefty. So I think he's fine in a tournament. He's probably fine if you have $3,000 left in a cash game. I'm not going to tell you no facing a pitcher making his major league debut either. So Forsythe is in a good spot tonight.
Yep, and then the last second baseman that I've kind of had my eye on here is Jeff McNeil over with the Mets. He's $3,700 on DraftKings. Last 10 games, hitting 343, 4 RBIs, 2 doubles, a triple, stolen base. So he's a guy that's really been hitting for them. Gets the lefty-righty matchup against Stratton, hitting second in the lineup tonight. So for me, I think McNeil's in a good spot over on DraftKings at his price tag.
Yeah, and Chris Stratton is absolutely atrocious. So I literally have no problem. I mean, a Mets stack is kind of sneaky tonight. I mean, sneaky, no, but I mean, there aren't names, like the name value isn't what I guess we have grown accustomed to, like Brandon Nimmo on the DL. Yeah. I mean, Jeff McNeil, Ahmed Rosario, who we're going to mention shortly, I promise you, the Mets could be in a good spot for a stack tonight.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with that. I just did get a little text alert here. Braves and Pirates are going to start their game in a rain delay. So if you're looking to target either of those, just kind of be on the aware of that game's probably going to end up being delayed to start. Touching right back on Stratton real quick, 364 WOBA allowed to left-handed hitters this year. That's something we definitely want to take advantage of. 8 of the 14 home runs allowed by him against left-handed bats. So McNeil played maybe looking a little bit better. And like you said, some of those lefty bats there in the Mets lineup. All right, let's move on to third base. We're kind of running out of time here. Who's your top third baseman? Is that Jose Ramirez?
It is not. It is going to be the guy that resides in Colorado, plays the hot corner pretty good, Nolan Arenado. The numbers are absolutely insane. 400, 542 WOBA, 434 ISO against left-handed pitching, and we can move on. He's like the top player of the slate. He's going to probably be the highest owned player on the slate too. Top player. I mean, there's just.
So can I make an argument for the other third baseman that's in this game?
I wrote him up in the playbook. I like it. I mean,
against
I love him.
lefty, which is the only spot we really like playing Christian Villanueva is against the lefty. He's 4 for 11 with a homer in his career off Anderson. Gets the Coors Field bump. He's hitting 336 with 1,100 OPS. 14 with 20 homers against lefties, and he gets a discount. Arenado's 5,700 on DraftKings. Villanueva is only 4,600. I mean, this is a crush spot, I think, for him. If this game plays, again, you got to be careful for the weather there tonight, but you're really getting to save some money, in my opinion, on Villanueva tonight, and a matchup that's very favorable for him.
I love him. Is Tyler Anderson 8 earned runs bad? Like, is he like he went out and got shelled his last time out? Is he that bad? I don't necessarily think he is, and he's weirdly been really good at home this year. I think that's really weird to say. Like, the last person I remember actually being good at home was Ubaldo when he was like a Cy Young candidate so many years back. The Rockies don't have like a lot of pitchers that pitch well at home, and I mean Anderson's been relatively good at home, 3.47 ERA. So I'm not saying no, because I wrote him up and I love him. I think just Arenado is in such an amazing spot, and he's been so incredible at home for how many years, and so incredible versus left-handed pitching. It's just hard for me to ignore. I think you'll obviously get Villanueva at lower ownership if you want to, take that route. But I think I just like Arenado slightly more.
Yeah, that's fine. Again, it's not going to argue with that. If we're going to kind of go to the mid tier and value, who's catching your eye at third?
We mentioned the Brewers when we said Travis Shaw, and I think Mike Moustakas hitting third is in a great spot. You mentioned Sal Romano just absolutely getting shelled. Moose has 17 home runs against righties this year with an 800 OPS. I don't think it's a very difficult choice. 4.4K on DraftKings is so reasonable. I think you load up on the Brewers tonight. It's a nice pivot off of the all out of this world priced Rockies. So I think Moose is my favorite mid-tier guy.
Yeah, I had my eye on him as well. If we're gonna go down a little bit, he wasn't in the lineup last night. Is Jed Jerko in tonight's lineup? Because it seems like the last couple of times I've tried to tout him against lefty pitching, he hasn't been in there. So
he is hitting sixth.
And he hit a pinch hit home run yesterday. So like
he did.
Okay. And I know
so your tout was spot on. You knew he was going to hit that pinch hit.
He did exactly what was going to happen. I know it's a tough matchup. Rue's pretty good. Ryu, however you want to pronounce his name, he's good. But Jerko's numbers against lefties are really solid this year. Hitting in the middle of that lineup, like you said, a lot of power upside out of him. So I kind of like him in that mid tier. And if we're going to go down, maybe a little value play. Steven Matz has been terrible lately, and Evan Longoria, I know he's struggled as well this season, and only hitting 170 over his last 10, but hits in 3 straight, a double last night, only 3,500. This is a guy that has historically again really hit lefties well. Maybe he takes advantage of his struggling Mats tonight.
Yeah, I think a really weird way to approach this, if you look at the Giants' top 5 hitters tonight, McCutchen 358 WOBA against lefties, Chase Darno 412. Evan Longoria 369, Nick Hundley 375. There's a really cheap owned stack right there in San Fran. I think you're onto something with Longoria as a really cheap value. Although he's been bad, he hasn't been bad against left-handed pitching. So
yeah, right. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it. It's a very cheap price tag for a guy that can still hit one out. They're playing in New York, which is better than the Pitchers Park over there in San Francisco. And yeah, like you said, this year, very drastic difference numbers against lefties versus righties. Versus lefties, 296 batting average, 858 OPS. Versus righties, 221, 621 OPS. So, yeah, I think this is a really good spot for a really cheap cost on a guy like Evan Longoria. If we're going over to shortstop, who's the top play?
I mean, so I think if you want to pivot off of Nolan Arenado in Colorado, I think Trevor Story is a great way to do that. Story's been on fire lately, hits in 15 of his last 16 games, 333 over his last 10. And on the year, he's hitting 306 against lefties with a 442 WOBA. So I think really you can't go wrong playing Story. You can't go wrong playing Arenado. But if you want to save some cash, Trevor Story is in a really good spot. I think he's clearly the top. I don't even think you need to look Francisco Lindor's way with Story on this slate if you're spending up at that really expensive price tag.
Yeah, this season against left-handed pitching in Coors Field, Story's hitting 397. He has an OPS of nearly 1,300.
Hashtag good.
Yeah, hashtag good, right. So those are just, the splits. Obviously, sample size, only 80 plate appearances. But, yeah, in Coors against the lefty, Trevor Story is absolute money. I'm not going to argue at all with you there. I talked about the Red Sox tonight. Xander Bogaerts, $5,000 in DraftKings, maybe a little bit too expensive, but he's really starting to hit the ball. Had 2 hits last night, 3 RBIs. Been hitting some doubles lately, and in Fenway he hits better. The power numbers are there for him. So for me, I think Xander's certainly in play. If we're going down sort of the middle tier, Eduardo Escobar could be interesting. At home against a lefty-righty matchup, he's $4,500 in DraftKings. What do you think about him? Is he that you're looking at tonight?
Yeah, I mean, Felix Pena is actually dreadful versus left-handed bats. I think he's allowed a 372 WOBA to left-handers this year, and we know Escobar has done primarily all his damage against righties. I think 14 of 18 of his home runs have come against southpaws this year, or against righties, excuse me. So I think Escobar is in a really good spot. Almost 1,000 OPS his last 10 games, multiple hits in 2 of his last 4 little 4-game hit streak. Yeah, Escobar is in a really good spot. And, we get him multi-position eligible over on DraftKings. So if you have someone slotted in at short, you can move him over to third.
Yeah, that works for me. Who you got for value tonight at shortstop?
So I love Marcus Simeon tonight, across the board, all formats. He's only 3K on FanDuel, and he's been absolutely raking the ball, just low key on, um, nobody's talking about him, but 339, 397, 532 slash in the month of August, and we're already, we're near the end of the month, so it's not a fluke by any means. 396 WOBA. I mentioned Jurado has allowed 5 bombs his last 2 games, and we've seen Simeon hit 30 home runs in a year. So I think this is a sneaky home run spot for him, and I think he works perfectly in an Oakland stack.
Yep, and I think one last guy to look at shortstop, you kind of alluded to him a little bit earlier, but Ahmed Rosario heading at the top of that lineup gets a really nice matchup tonight. And with the righty on the mound, his stolen bases are in play. There's a guy that has picked up the stolen base numbers lately, and most of them come when the righty is on the mound. So I think for me, you can certainly go in that direction. If we're going outfield, James, who's the top outfield today?
So I think there are 4 guys that stand out to me, and that's Chris Davis, who went yard again last night. It's Andrew Benintendi, Giancarlo Stanton, and Bryce Harper. I think Davis is the top play across the board in the outfield. I mean, when he's hot, he's hot. There's just no denying it. He gets a righty. We've known he's historically always been better against same-sided pitchers, and again, it's just Jurado, does he have it? He doesn't. It's a bad spot for him. I think Davis is viable in all formats. I mentioned I like the lefties against Shane Bieber, which is why I'm touting Benintendi maybe a little more than Mookie or JD here. But against lefties, 319 average, a 940 OPS, and a 406 WOBA allowed for Shane Bieber. So I mean, that puts Benintendi squarely in play. 325, 401 for Benintendi. And obviously he's been bad lately, as you know, but he does get the righty, which is something that he's feasted on all year.
Yeah, so I'm going with the whole total narrative streak tonight. Giancarlo Stanton going to Miami.
Right.
He's also hitting 361 with a near 1,300 OPS over the last 10 games. This guy's becoming the player as advertised, strikeouts aside. The power numbers there, the RBIs, the batting average. And I kind of find it hard to believe that he's not going to homer in a return to Miami tonight. So for me, he's my top outfielder. If we're going down sort of middle tier, who's got your eye?
So I do think, by the way, Giancarlo Stanton does hit a home run. 1.53 home run per 9 for Pablo Lopez. So yeah, I think I mentioned McCutchen when we were talking about Longoria. Leading off tonight, it's another one of those like obscure things. Like we don't picture McCutchen as a leadoff hitter, but he's hit lefties well in the past, and he's done it again this year. He had 1,100 OPS, last year. He has an 800 OPS this year against lefties. So he comes into this game already getting the lefty. 5-game hit streak. He has a home run and 2 stolen bases within that stretch. So I mean, if we're getting the McCutchen a few years ago of MVP caliber, where he's hitting home runs and stealing bases, I think that's pretty viable at 3.4K and 4.2K across all platforms. I think those price tags are wonderful, and I think the whole Cubs outfield, everyone that's viable for eligibility in the outfield, Zobrist, Schwarber, Almora, I think they're literally all in play. The Cubs have one of the highest implied totals on the board. I think they were 3rd the last time I checked. But Schwarber, we know, hits righties historically way better than he hits lefties. I mean, he's basically hit all of his home runs against right-handed pitching. Jason Hayward has great BVP, 6 for 17 with a home run off Jordan Zimmerman, and Almora leading off, hitting over 300 against righties. So I think you can literally play any of them. They're all priced very fairly too.
Affordably.
Very, very nice price tags. I mean, Almora's free on FanDuel, so you could play all of them, mid-tier, value tier. I think that whole outfield is in great spot tonight.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with you. Some value guys real quick. Over on DraftKings, at least, I'm not sure what he is on FanDuel, but Marwin Gonzalez is outfield eligible. This is a guy that's really raking right now, 324, 900 OPS, 2 homers over the last 10 games, 3 for 4 with a homer last night, homered in 2 straight games. I think him versus Mike Leake is in a good spot. And then, I talked about Jake Cave last night, homered. And I kind of go back to the well again there today, homered in back-to-back games. Again, I know Kopech throws hard, but that generates some power there, the fastball. So for me, I think Cave is an interesting spot tonight, as well as a cheap outfield option.
Yeah, I think Cave. You called it. You could. That's a really really great call. Even though you called him Cave when you first touted him. No, I understand, and yeah, he's actually homered in 2 straight, which is super intriguing. Yeah, if you're not on Kopech, I think Cave is in a really good spot.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. Any final thoughts on today's slate?
No, we do have a question on the website though. Fogey30 is asking Marcus Semien and Matt Chapman or Mike Moustakas, and I assume Chris Taylor. That would be the Taylor that I think
I'm going to go Semien and Chapman.
Agreed. I mean, Oakland is in a great spot, and Chris Taylor isn't on my radar. I do like Moose, but I think Semien and Chapman are the guys that we want in that spot.
Yep, that's kind of where I would go too. So that wraps up here Tuesday's live stream. Everybody, good luck. Go win some money, and we'll be back with you tomorrow.
Later, guys.